we're just going to move a little bit. There we are. Oh, you want to come up here, yeah? Okay. So I'm not really supposed to be carrying things like Balala here, but needs must. There we go. This isn't quite right, you know, we haven't got the... That's better. Please excuse me a moment, feeling a little slow. Old age, sickness and death comes to us all, even us ascetically practicing monks struggling on in these places. We wear out, you know. But all is good. I'm repairing, slowly getting better, hopefully. And one comment I received, I just wanted to use by way of an introduction today, was referring to a Dharma talk I gave on Hiri and Ottappa. So if you want to see that Dharma talk, it was when I was back in India, in Ketohali, South India. You can look it up, rather than me explain what Hiri and Ottappa is now. I think I explain it more recently in videos as conscience and conscientiousness, but the comment was referring to that talk being a Dharma talk, saying, please go back to this, more Dharma talks. So if I just, by way of introduction, explain, nothing's changed. There may be more questions and answers, so entitled, but videos where I talk about your comments and your questions, and I try to give some point of view, of my point of view from experience as to what I think's happening there in matters relating to, and I'm trying to keep it restricted, matters relating to sila, moral virtue, samadhi, meditation, and wisdom, panya, but the development of wholesome mind states, reduction of unwholesome mind states. Ultimately, this means reduction of suffering in this lifetime. The Buddha taught us there is suffering, a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, and this path leading us to the end of suffering being that of sila, samadhi, panya, in summary. So, moral virtue, we keep 5 precepts, but in the Noble Eightfold Path, this is covered by right intentions, actions, speech and livelihood. Half of the Noble Eightfold Path, 4. The first of the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. This is wisdom. So it's just one aspect. The remaining 3 at the end are right energy, right effort, right mindfulness and right meditation. So they relate to samadhi, meditation. This is where we have this summary of categories, sila, samadhi, panya. I want to try and keep these talks on your comments and your questions restricted to those areas, those topics. Not so much about cats, where I'm staying, what I eat, although some of that comes into it. It's part of Dharma. And Dharma is 2 things. Dharma is everything, the universe, nature, and in our cases specifically human nature in relation to the universe where we abide, live, stay, exist. And that interaction of ourselves, so-called, we perceive to be ourselves, this idea we have of a personality, a person, of what we are, that interaction, that relationship between that which is very, very fickle, very, very weak, very flexible, very changeable, and nothing really real, insubstantial in fact, much like a bubble. It can just burst. One minute you're this, the next minute you're that. You'll know in your own lives as we grow, we change continuously, whether it's a job change, a relationship change, a place where we live, a culture we're surrounded by. All of these influences, external influences, have effects on that perception of what we consider to be our self, but also a very real change in what perhaps others perceive you to be. However, it is just this result of causes and conditions. This is right view. This is the understanding that there really is no actual self. There is no personality or even a soul to speak of in that sense that can be going after death anywhere, to hell, to heaven, or even to be reincarnated. But simply an energy, an awareness, a consciousness of knowing that is abiding in this physical presence within this universe, and its relation with the external effects of the universe is through its sensory input, through the windows, the doors of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and of course thinking. All that we think is as a result of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, those external influences. So we may think we are a bank manager living in London, England, UK. And this isn't wrong. We are that. We have a family, a car, a dog, a cat, a house, a garden. We have children in a certain school. We have certain responsibilities. But that which knows that can also walk away from that and become something entirely different. We call it becoming something. We say becoming something entirely different, but nothing there is becoming. What is happening is that sense, that energy is moving from one perception, one idea of form into another. And that which has changed, that which has moved, has not changed in itself. It remains just consciously aware. Now this is what we call the citta. So what I began to say and what I was introducing this video with was this question about have more Dharma talks rather than question I think you were referring to the more videos that you might be seeing that are related to comments and questions that I'm trying to answer and talk about. For this channel to be, not become, but be what you want to see. Now, I could sit here and talk about what I want to talk about, and it wouldn't be of any beneficial maybe to anyone other than myself, this self as it is now, and perhaps Balala the cat here, if I was just talking randomly about uninteresting stuff. So I use this format, this platform, to respond to the comments that I receive in order that you can really help suggest the direction in which this channel's growth goes and what content I contribute to it, what I talk about. And for that, I appreciate your input very much. There are often comments that say, oh, you're answering that same question over and over again. Not negative comments, you're usually thanking me for my patience in doing that. Well, it requires no patience. The Buddha only taught one thing: there is suffering and an end of suffering. There are 184,000 suttas in the Sutta Pitaka teaching just that, but saying it in very many different ways to very many different kinds of people. And Similarly, in the Bible, the Christian Bible, there is talk of moral virtue, kindness to one another, etc., taught in very many different ways to very many different kinds of people. When you're talking to a scientist, an intellectual, one might use different analogies to describe something than one would use when talking to an engineer, a mechanic, someone who makes things. We have in life people who think about things, and people who make things, people who do things with the things that are made, all kinds of people. That's what makes up society. So that means the Dharma, as in the second form of the Dharma, the first being all that we perceive through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. The second form of Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. What is contained there in those suttas, the Sutta Pitaka. And the teachings of the Buddha is what we express, what we call as Dharma. This is the legacy of the Buddha. The Buddha is not a god we worship, we pray to. He asked that his parinirvana, that his legacy, he leaves no confirmation of transference of power, no saying, right, you now, I am this king, you now, I die, you take over. Like we say in the UK when the Queen dies or a king dies, God save the king, God save the queen, long live the king, long live the queen. Because immediately that a king dies or a queen dies, another leader, monarch, replaces them. When asked, the Buddha was asked who would replace the Buddha. The Buddha's bequest, his last will and testament, was that all that replaces him was not this, not effigies, not representations, statues to be worshipped to, prayed to, but simply, and not a replacement leader of the religion, even as a figurehead, but simply his teachings, being the Vinaya, the body of rules, the Vinaya Pitaka for monks and nuns, so governing rules for the Sangha. So we have the Buddha, the teacher, and the Dharma, his teachings, the Sutta Pitaka, the word of the Buddha, what he said to his disciples and all the people, the many different kinds of people in 45 years of teaching that he came across, expressing and teaching just this one simple thing: there is suffering and an end of suffering, and this path leading to the end of suffering. This is the expanded version on suffering, the Four Noble Truths, and the teaching of the Noble Eightfold Path: right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness and meditation. This is the way to liberation. This is the way to freedom from suffering in this lifetime. So this is the Buddha's legacy. Now it warrants considerable amount of repeat. In this talk already, I've repeated the teachings of the Buddha over and over again, 2, 3, maybe 4 times. That there's suffering and an end of suffering, and the way, the cause of suffering, I talk about over and over again: desire. So every Dharma talk is a repeat of the question: how do we become free from suffering in this lifetime? How do we attain to enlightenment, realization? And every one of those 184,000 teachings of the Buddha was thus repeating this same objective, this same answer, this same path, method, technique, system of training. So I welcome the questions. Now, the ones outside of Sila, Samadhi, Panya that are also repeated, I hope I am developing the skill to perhaps not spend so much of my time talking about how I get here, visa issues, where I'm staying, this sort of thing. I do understand that can be, when repeated, a little boring. But I'm also mindful that there has to be some break in the content of interest to just spice it up a little, not in an unskillful way, but in order that you do need to know how I arrive at certain causes and conditions for me to be able to practice. And I'm also aware, mindful, conscious that many people are watching this video and have never seen any others. So to them, all of these questions are coming up in their minds as to what on earth is this chap talking about? What is he, after all? Why is he there, sitting there like that, talking to us about this, whatever this is? Because we're not all seasoned Dharma practitioners. We're not all Buddhists. We're not all necessarily even speaking English. And maybe just getting a glimpse of something that's been flashed in front of them because YouTube thought it was appropriate to do so. So, to that end, what I wanted to introduce to you and explain that you may not be aware of, is that each week I probably make or sit and spend, and it's not very long, because my life is about practicing meditation, living in solitude, a simple life and meditation, not making videos. There is no equipment, no studios, like I spoke about in the last video. I sit in front of this phone whenever I get the opportunity, like now, early in the morning, before my morning chanting, and meditate, and my live chanting and meditation. And that time slot has changed because of my current prevailing condition, which I won't go into. But I sit for just 40 minutes, 50 minutes and talk like this, randomly. And sometimes I answer questions or talk about your comments. Now, what I do is each week, probably 3 of those videos, so I only do this for 5 days of the week. Then I have 2 days completely clear, no phone use. I don't look at the phone or need to look at it at all or use it. I only use these smartphones for this purpose. They're not necessary in my life for any other reason other than to perhaps call my mother once in a blue moon, and some visas and laws of the local land one has to abide by, and necessary things. But I don't use social media or any of these things, and I never talk on the telephone. So I have very little use of this platform and format, and I listen to Dharma talks myself. And in those Dharma talks I listen to from my teachers, some of whom I've met, some I haven't, but I consider them my teachers because they are whom have taught the Dharma, passed it on to through this long tradition of the Sangha right back to the time of the Buddha. They are the teachers who have taught me the Dharma in my own mother tongue, in my own language, so I can easily understand it. And they come from usually the Thai Forest tradition, which is what I've been trained in, and how I understand the practice to work well for me, and is working well for me, and how I live in accordance with its particular, and in addition to the original Vinaya peculiar, what we call but additional rules, that works and suits my way of practice, a very simple way of living and practicing the Dharma in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha. So I use it for simply that. So in that week of 5 videos, there's probably 3 where I talk about your comments and questions and answers, and 2 Dharma talks. Maybe sometimes there's 3 Dharma talks and 2 questions and answers videos. And they are titled as such, if they're questions and answers. But more than that, they are separated or saved or somehow categorized into some categories. There are live, there's chanting first, which is my live every morning, 6 a.m. this time, Indian Standard Time, which is a short half-hour video that's live of me, the morning puja, chanting, a short 15-minute meditation, and me offering blessings to everybody. That's every day of the week. That's 6 days a week, health permitting and location permitting and internet permitting. That I do every day. All I have to do in that is to just turn the phone on so that it puts it live on YouTube. There's no effort involved there. Then the other 5 days of the week, the categories are, there are Dharma talks, questions and answers, monks, life, and travel. Now, I rarely ever put anything on travel. I'm not interested in making travel videos because there are so many on YouTube and they're done by professional people who can do it so well. So if you want to learn about Sri Lanka, look for those sort of videos. Monk's life is when I'm perhaps dyeing robes or things I might have to do on Upasthana Day, or when people are bringing dana here, and these are the food orientated and lifestyle of a monk videos. Dharma talks are when I'm just talking about the Dharma. This video, as I haven't got around to answering any questions or talking about any of your comments, will go in under that category. The video entitled Hiri and Ottappa would go under, because it's just talking about that one subject matter of Dharma, go under that title of Dharma Talks. So if you're not interested in questions and answers, just go to the playlist and you'll get the latest Dharma talk at the top. And each week there are at least 2, if not 3. So you don't have to think, oh, they've gone away. Every week I've made the same number of Dharma talks for over a year now. No less. In fact, if anything, there are more. So when you ask me, can we have more of that? They're there. But the way maybe I'm presenting them is sounding perhaps not so much in a formal Dharma talk manner that you might be used to or accustomed to on some other channels. Now this is because these are from very senior monks whom are operating very much in a very established environment, with many monks and people there at the event, and there is a formality and a structure to an official Dharma talk that has to be abided by. It's convention, it's tradition, and it's rather nice. And on occasions I do that also. But more often than not, I'm just sitting down chatting. Because the purpose of my contributions is to share with you my experience as I grow in the Dharma with this practice as a very junior monk of just a few years or so. I've been practicing like this for many years now, and living as a monk and in monasteries and in unusual environments, let's say, alone, keeping the 8 precepts for, I don't know, more than 8 or 9 years now. So I have experience in meditation and living the life of a monk, even though I only ordained a few years ago. So in that sense, I'm still a very junior monk, and therefore don't try to compete with or compare myself to my own teachers, whom I'm learning from still, like you, from my teachers. And I often recommend, videos of my teachers to you on certain subject matters that I'm not experienced or qualified or know enough about to talk on. So the Dharma talks are there under that category, Dharma talks. Then there are questions and answers, which are literally when I read my questions, your questions and comments, and talk about those. Nothing's really changed, except I think they could be a little lost in some of the titles. But I'm trying to make the titles a little more specific and less catchy. But they need to be somewhat catchy in order for people to get them put in front of them by YouTube. This is the way it works. I've learned only through experience. Now, many people, I get, quite a few emails from people trying to make this channel have lots more views or lots more subscribers. These are commercial enterprises wanting to, or who might see this channel as a commercial channel. Well, it is not a commercial channel. A number of views, number of subscribers is irrelevant. If there's 1 subscriber, 2 subscribers, or I think it's more than 6,000 subscribers now, it doesn't really matter, because I am sharing the Dharma and my experience with someone who's interested. That's what matters. So I'm not after it growing quickly, because that would be perhaps people whom have just subscribed or viewed because it's been put in front of them by manipulation of the algorithm that allows the YouTube system to do that. I would rather people share this video with someone that they might think would also find it interesting, hearing a monk talking about his experiences of life with the Dharma, than 100 people watching it to give a whole load of views or whatever, because it doesn't gain anything that way. This way also, it grows slowly but organically, and it grows a strong community of like-minded people that in the Dharma we call, and in Buddhism we call, Kalyanamitta. These are noble friends or beautiful friendships. So people whom are all trying to practice this Noble Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, so like-minded, rather than all competing and arguing about this and that, and my religion's better than yours and yours is better. No, people whom are seeing that there's suffering, there's a cause of suffering and an end of suffering if we follow this path, and then helping each other along that path by supporting and encouraging each other, as you very much support and encourage me. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you now talking to you if I wasn't supported and encouraged by your comments, by your questions, and by your interest and the very nature you have subscribed to this channel. That encourages me to continue doing this. That is why I've continued doing this now for over a year, even though there's been some resistance to me doing that with respect to some of my Sangha in some countries, not so much in others, because it can be seen that you are just maybe using a medium as by way of, I don't know, like social media. Well, I don't have Facebook, I don't even know what all the social media things these days are, but back in the day, as they say, I had for a very short time Facebook, but that's a long time ago, and I cannot be found in those areas. Of course, if you do search now, this channel will come up, but it isn't me. It certainly isn't me. What comes up is English Buddhist Monk, the channel. Not even my monk's name. Most people don't know that. They have to look in the channel description to find that. But that is because this is just a channel for you. It's your channel. And it's what it's made of, what its content is what you've asked me to talk about. So even if I have those categories, with the exception of chanting, which is a very separate thing, of Dharma talks and questions and answers, it is all Dharma. They're all Dharma talks. What I'm talking about today, here and now, is Dharma. It's my Dharma of today. It's about, I don't know, 4:30 a.m. in the morning. It's pouring with rain. There are mosquitoes everywhere because I haven't got the fan on. But that's the Dharma. That is the way it is. It's just that at the moment, this morning, here and now, in Sri Lanka. It's, I don't know, 30 odd degrees, so I'm quite hot and warm and sticky. It's very humid. This is my Dharma. This is reality. This is the truth. So Dharma isn't just an intellectual quoting a sutta on Hiri and Ottappa. There really isn't a particular sutta, I don't think, just on hiri and ottappa. It's just a subject that I find very useful to help us keep within the parameters of Dharma. It's our boundaries of sila, what keeps us on course. Now, my own discipline has to also always be put back in place in this respect. What are we doing now with me talking to you? And I do, and I fully admit, have a tendency to go a little off track sometimes with my worldly interactions. But I only do that also in order to share with you my experience in the hopes that someone else out there will benefit if they're suffering in the same way, or having enjoyment and pleasure in the same way, and by way of comparison. Because this is what we choose to watch. This is what we choose to listen to. Something we can relate to. Not some high, lofty, unattainable goal. Now, I'm not offering or suggesting that everybody has to become a monk in order to become happy. What I'm hopefully offering and suggesting and showing is that anyone, lay people and monks, can become free from suffering in this lifetime by just the realization and seeing of the truth. The very simple truth of suffering and the end of suffering and its cause, that of desire. Because by me sharing you with that from this perhaps rather, it may be extreme point of view, to me it isn't extreme. It is my Dharma, it is my everyday life. Normally I go on Pindapata each day, walking 7 kilometers, and I know I harp on about this over and over again, but to me it's not something special, it's my way of life and normal. And somebody said to me yesterday that they watched this video of me on Pindapata, going with this bowl, getting my food every day. And they said, you know, why, you don't say, oh, you've just turned up in a completely random country, you don't know anybody, and from day one you did this. Weren't you concerned? Don't you think you should say on your videos, hey, here I am, I've just turned up in a completely random country I've never been to before, I don't speak the language, I don't have any money, but if I want to eat, I've got to dress like this and do this, but because the Buddha taught me that's what you do. He said, you don't say that in your videos. I said, well, no, there's no need, surely, for me to say that. That is what the Buddha taught us. Because I have absolute saddha, which is faith, in the teachings of the Buddha, that legacy of his, that he's left behind. The Vinaya, firstly, which protects me, helps me keep sila, keeps my rules, and helps me dress correctly, carry my bowl correctly, and walk around in the prescribed manner. Because I have absolute faith in that, and the teachings of the Buddha, the Sutta Pitaka, the Dharma, I have ultimate confidence that I will be fed. Now, it doesn't matter if I'm in Nepal. This person had met up with me in Nepal also, seeing me doing the same thing, and remarked on this as an extraordinary thing for someone from England, UK, to actually be doing. But that I don't actually say, oh, it's an extraordinary thing that I'm doing, because to me it is not an extraordinary thing that I'm doing. It is just normal. It is what the Buddha taught us how we are supposed to live. Now, it does transpire, after some weeks here, months here now, that even the people in this country think it's a rather extraordinary thing for a monk to be doing, because not all of the monks these days do that here. But it's not so extraordinary that they don't know what to do. Their grandparents, and themselves as children, grew up with monks on Pindapata, and they grew up running out of the house in the morning with anything they could grab and find at the last minute to put in the monk's bowl. And that is what they do with me now here. And as soon as I'm ready and able to, I'll be going back out on my Pindapata rounds every day without fail. I'm only skipping it at the moment because I'm unable due to ill health or injury, sickness, and that is the only reason we can not perform that duty, because it is a duty. It is our responsibility as the Sangha, as monks, to represent the Buddha's teachings in this form in that way, by walking through public places like this, begging for food, but without asking, without begging, just being seen. Then people remember, or if they're not remembering, if you're in a non-Buddhist country, they will not remember. They will have the instinctual understanding that they need to put something in that bowl. Now, whether that's because they've learned that in previous lifetimes, which they will have, from my Buddhist perspective, that's how they know to put something in there, even if it's something appropriate, like inappropriate rather, like money or uncooked food, they will put something in there. Because it's logical, isn't it? We see someone like this, with a bowl, you feel you want to put something in that bowl. I don't know whether it's everywhere in the world, but in Western countries, we see a well, an open well. That's a thing where we get water from. Well, you have wells here, but the wells are different here, and it doesn't happen here. But in the West, and certainly in Europe, there's a fountain in Rome called the Trevi Fountain. But any fountains in Rome, any bodies of water, like wells in France or Italy or European countries, people have this instinctual and really rather quizzical but undeniable urge to throw money, not a huge amounts, but a coin, into that body of water. Now, to throw money into a well isn't that necessarily the most hygienic thing to do, because this is where people, after all, are getting their drinking water from. Or into a fountain, indeed, the same. People may be using this water to drink or wash, especially if it's holy water. But if you go to the Trevi Fountain in Rome, where I've been, they have to clear the money out every day, because so much is thrown in there. Now, this is actually, even if it's empty and nobody knew of this tradition, someone will do it. So a monk walks with this bowl, something gets put in there. Now, the Buddha must have known in his infinite wisdom and his infinite compassion that this is how he would get fed, and how his legacy of the Sangha would sustain their existence for as long as it has, 2,566, 67 years now, and just in this form and this format. But what it is that's within this form and this format doing that activity is just the body as it is now. As it was a body some years back, a little more healthy at the time, maybe, probably not so healthy at the time, but when I had a completely different way of life. But what hasn't changed is the awareness of what this body is doing. And now my awareness, my conscious awareness, in terms of the actual consciousness sense, knows I'm living this way. But the real knower, the citta, that knows I'm living this way, is far more content than the citta there was before, knowing I was living a different way. And this is how these teachings of the Buddha work. Because when this citta, through causes and conditions you put in place through all of our actions of body, speech and mind, kept within the parameters of sila, and using samadhi to develop tranquility, peace, samatha, vipassana, tranquility and peace of mind, and seeing clearly the Dharma, the truth of existence. This practice develops wisdom, panya. These unwholesome mind states are reduced, and wholesome mind states. Still there is desire to help, to be kind, to practice generosity, to share. But the craving, the thirst for instant gratification is reduced, and therefore the disappointment as a result of that trying to satisfy insatiable desires is replaced by the simplicity of life that can satisfy just our basic needs and provide contentment, which is the basis and foundation of happiness. So this citta that is in this form now is a citta of sukha, which is happiness. The citta I may have had before in a previous life within this life, but in a different form and existence, was a citta of dukkha, suffering. Now, of course, I still have some dukkha, suffering. I'm not free from suffering in this lifetime yet, but this is why I practice this way. And this is why I share that Dharma with you this way in the different forms that I do. If you don't want to listen to questions and answers, just load up the Dharma playlist. If you only want to listen to questions and answers, just load up the questions and answers playlist. Lorries are going by now. Very early start, the rush hour here, isn't it? On that note, it is time for me to get ready for morning chanting and short meditation, which I just have to turn around, relight the candles, because that's part of the morning puja, offering of light, incense, and then the chanting, and get on with my day. No Pindapata today, but people will be coming here offering me food, because they've got used to me going into the town collecting, so now they inquire as to, oh, where's that monk? And they all talk, oh, he's not very well, he had an operation, so they now bring the food here. And as soon as I can, I will go back to their houses and bring the Dharma to their doorsteps, as I've been doing so far. And I will continue to bring the Dharma to your doorsteps in this form as I'm doing now. And I really hope you can continue to enjoy it, even if it is a little repetitive from time to time. But just remember, we do not get bored of our favourite tune, our song. Maybe over and over again sometimes, but usually when we hear it after some time again, it's refreshing, it's invigorating, it's the Dharma. And the Dharma is, in its very nature, music. Music that we can continue to listen to for the rest of our lives. Even if it's the same old song, the same old tune. It's a pleasure to hear. Yeah, she's really licking my hand now. Very spiky sort of tongues they have, don't they? I've never experienced that. This is a new experience, a new Dharma for me. So, until next time, I hope there's something useful there you can use. If not, let it go. And thank you for watching. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Oh, Balala. Time for us to move now. Yes, good girl. I'm a little bit stuck, aren't I? You can, this might take me a little longer than usual, so I'm having to move a bit carefully. Isn't that right, Balala? So, you don't have to watch this bit, but you're welcome to. I don't do any editing, and there are no remote buttons, are there, Balala, to just turn the video off now, as I'd like to. Isn't it? This old monk, he's got injuries, hasn't he? Okay, good girl. And if you do ever want to join me for chanting and morning meditation, it's at 6 a.m. every day, India Standard Time, but it is available under the playlist of chanting to watch at any time, anywhere. And that is repetitive, it's the same every day.